Thank you so much, Matt. Welcome, everyone. So glad that the library and the Bethlehem Co-op Market continues to collaborate on these webinars. I'm glad you're here. Tonight, we're going to hear from Lauren Fosbenner and Catherine Semmens. They both are an integral part of the Nurture Nature Center, and they're going to speak on the topic here of Create Connections, a project of the Nurture Nature Center. Just want to let you know that after this is completed, that the video will be available on the co-op's website and also YouTube page. That's where I found it, and the library's YouTube page. So the co-op has a commitment to use sustainable practices in everything we do, and we're really very happy to present this program with the library. And at the end, I'll let you know about next month's webinar. Thanks so much. Go ahead, Lauren and Catherine.
Well, we'll just quick introduce ourselves, and then I have a few slides, and then Lauren will do some. And we do have some interaction planned throughout the webinar. So if you have the ability to open up something on your smartphone or put another tab on your desktop, if that's how you're watching us, there will be opportunity to do some interactive polls. So I'm Kate Semmens. I'm the Science Director at Nurture Nature Center. And Lauren, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Lauren. I'm the project specialist at Nurture Nature Center.
And we are here talking to you about a project that is funded by NOAA, which is the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. They have a program called the Environmental Literacy Program, and we have a 4-year grant through them to do this project. And it's called Create Connections. And it follows an earlier project that was called Create Resilience, which focused on hazards and coming up with a vision of resiliency. This project focuses more on action and climate action plans in Easton and Bethlehem. Before we dive into it, just a quick overview of what we'll be presenting tonight. I'll give you, for those of you who are not familiar with the Nurture Nature Center, I'll give you a very brief intro to us, but highly recommend you come visit us in person if you can. And then I'll talk a little bit about the Create Connections project, where we are right now. We're in year 2, and so I'll let you know where we are, and then ways that you can get involved and help and take climate action. So the Nurture Nature Center is located in downtown Easton. It's right across from an up a block from the State Theater. And we were started in response to flooding that happened in Easton in 2004, 5, and 6. So we originally started focusing on flooding impacts and helping our community understand flooding hazards and how they could be better prepared. We've expanded since then, but we have 3 main approaches that we try to integrate in all that we do, and that is an integration of science, art, and community. We have a science ionosphere in our space, and so we host a lot of educational programming. We have art gallery spaces throughout our building. We offer workshops in science and art, and we do a lot with the community, as you will see in particular in this project. As I mentioned, the earlier project that we had was Create Resilience, and that was also a 4-year project that focused specifically on the hazard mitigation plan, but it kept that same 3 themes that we always try to do, which was science, art, and community. And we started with the science, which was the hazard mitigation, and then we added in art components like story gathering and community forums, and we had artists that created these large 15-foot murals that showed the vision of community resilience. And we felt that that project was very successful. We also had an evaluation of the impact, which showed its success, But at the end, it was awareness and engagement, but we felt that we needed more. We needed to move into action. And we recognized that both Easton and Bethlehem have climate action plans, and we didn't want those plans to just sit on the shelf. We wanted them to become something that was a whole community approach. And as you all hopefully are aware, climate is affecting us now. It affects everybody to varying degrees, but it is here and having its impacts. And it's not something that just can be fixed by our local government or federal government. It's something that requires everybody to understand that it's an issue, and it requires action by everybody in the community. That runs the gamut from support to individual action to sharing with others. So that is really our main approach here, is to do education and outreach around those climate action plans. They're both, that the education and outreach are both main pieces of those plans. They're part of the strategies for implementation. And we recognized that in order to get those plans moving, we needed to build social capital and connectedness within the communities. So we're doing that through that multi-pronged approach where we're integrating science, art, and community. So the goals are to provide education. It's to engage with community-based partners like the libraries, students, artists, other community-based organizations. We want everyone to feel like they are a part of this effort and that they can also share about it and become disseminators of climate educators to those in their community. And importantly, create a pathway for the communities to implement their climate action plans. So our activities to do that are to build partnerships with those local community-based organizations. For example, we didn't have any close ties with Community Bike Works before this project, and now we collaborate with them a lot, and they are really great partners. And so their mission is not climate focused, but by supporting youth and developing leadership skills with bikes and encouraging more biking, it's doing their part to support the climate action in our community. So that's just one example of the partnerships that we've been developing. We also are going to have active learning programming at the libraries. We are currently working on that with 6 college interns, and we'll be having them at both the Easton and Bethlehem public libraries this upcoming summer. And that's targeted for youth and their families. We've developed a series of educational climate action strategy spotlights that Lauren's going to dive into in more detail. We're also working with some businesses, local businesses, to support their sustainability efforts and help spread the word about climate action. Coming up in this upcoming fall in October, we're going to have public arts installations that our art director, Carrie Macfield, will be leading. And during the unveiling of those installations, we'll have a climate action week, and we'll be sharing climate-friendly kits, which are little things to get people started with taking climate action, from a plant-based recipe to an LED light bulb. And then we hold a youth climate summit every year. We are currently planning for our 6th annual youth climate summit, which will be in April. And this is a great opportunity to engage local middle and high school youth. And I'll talk more about that in a later slide. So in our first year, we started not this past October, but the October before. So about 1.5 years in. But in our first year, we're really focused on building those partnerships. We did a lot of outreach to local businesses. We developed climate action strategy spotlights. We had our Youth Climate Summit last April, which was very successful. And we are currently working with 6 undergraduate interns to help us develop some of these materials. We also worked closely with the libraries to catalog the resources that were related to climate action, and we created a number of resources for them, including book club guides and bookmarks. You can see an example of one of the bookmarks there on the right, but we have over a dozen of these bookmarks that focus on different things, from energy to food to climate action. So if the next time you're in the libraries, see if you can find them. We also suggested some new materials for the libraries to purchase and book club recommendations. And we know that the Easton is already planning a book club around one of the books. They're also looking at some other fun ideas like workshops and bingo. And they'll both work with us to create that family programming I mentioned that will be this summer. The past Youth Climate Summit that we held was in April. We had over 120 students participate. We were not expecting the large influx, so we actually had to turn down, stop registration, which was a great problem to have. But we now have a lot of lessons learned for planning for the next one this April. We had a climate fair, which was allowed a number of our community organizations to have a table, and then the students would informally go around and talk with them, and this was very positively received. And the whole summit itself was focused on climate superpowers. And for this, we wanted to make sure that it was a positive thing, because often climate change can become very negative and it can seem like you can't make a difference. It can seem hopeless sometimes. And we wanted to shift the narrative on that and really focus on the youth skills and interests that they have and how they could use that to contribute to the effort of climate action. So there's a very, it's about 15-minute quiz that you can take that identifies what your climate superpower is, and you ultimately come out as one of these archetypes. This is just one of them. You would answer a series of questions, and then they would say, well, you identify most with the caregiver or the scientist or the artist or the organizer. And so we had all of the youth take this quiz and then reflect on, is that accurate to them, and what could they do with these skills that help with climate action? And then they could use that to help form some climate action planning that we did later in the summit. I mentioned we have several interns from Lehigh University, Moravia, and Northampton County Community College in Lafayette. They have a range of interests, and they are working to do outreach on their own campuses and connect with local businesses. They're helping us develop social media videos, and then they'll also help with the library programming and the Youth Climate Summit. And I'm going to turn it over to Lauren. And Lauren, I realized I didn't do the Menti at the right slide. So if we want to do them, I think we
can do them all together in a couple
Okay.
slides and that'll work well.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, you're good. So I'm just going to touch on a few of the other areas where we focused our outreach so far, places that you might come across this project as you're out and about in Bethlehem, or if we have any Easton folks who have crossed over to the Bethlehem Library webinar. But one of those is the businesses. So as part of bringing climate action to a whole community approach, we're working with local businesses and both ways that they can integrate sustainability and climate action into their own practices, and also as touch points in the community that can get the message out and connect to other parts of the community as well. So far that's looked like a survey that we sent out to businesses in both Easton and Bethlehem, in addition to some individual in-person outreach and interviewing of some business owners. And so far what we've found from those responses is that there's really strong interest from a lot of businesses in both Easton and in Bethlehem, that they're already doing a lot in terms of sustainability, both because it saves them money and is good for their operations, and also because a lot of these business owners are really passionate about our local environment, as well as issues like climate action, reducing plastics. And so they're trying to integrate those practices into their businesses. So there really is a strong interest in learning about more ways that they can take action. So maybe they're already recycling and composting their coffee grounds, but they're not quite sure how to reduce their energy use. So there's interest in finding what the next step could be. A lot of the businesses that we've talked to have mentioned packaging and plastic waste. So that's, as we all know in our daily lives, it's hard to avoid plastic. It's everywhere. And that's true for businesses and their operations as well, even if they're avoiding single use, if it's like a coffee shop and they're avoiding single use plastics that they give to their consumers, things that they get shipped in may still be shipped in plastic, and there's a lot of sources to consider there. So that's an area that we'd like to focus on some additional resources and opportunities. And then the last thing is just seeking community and ways to engage with people. So in addition to people that come into their store as a customer and are purchasing products, business owners expressed interest in hosting community events or coordinating volunteer opportunities and really being integrated into the civic engagement and community approach that we've been emphasizing throughout this project. So that's been really encouraging. And then on this last point, something exciting that we have upcoming is that Nurture Nature Center is working on developing a new business recognition program. So for businesses who are taking action toward being more climate friendly and towards sustainability, having a program where they can fill out a questionnaire reporting the actions that they've taken, and they'll get recognition in one of a few levels, from climate aware, starting to take some action, up to this is a climate champion, really a leader in our community. And that's good for them in terms of kind of some promotion for their efforts, and also is helpful for us as consumers to know which businesses are focusing on these things and maybe operating more sustainably than other businesses. So this is something that we're looking to develop with a lot of business input in the next year, in the next 6 months or so, and really have it rolling within a year. We're meeting with local businesses on February 3rd virtually. So if you are a business owner or know a business owner who might be interested, please reach out and we can get you that information. We can go on to the next slide there. Thank you. Okay, so moving into the strategy spotlights, this is one of the resources that we've developed that is for the general public. So we have some of this tailored outreach to youth and businesses and the libraries, and the strategy spotlights apply to all of us. So they come from the climate action plans. We looked at both plans and compared, what actions are laid out as part of the strategy for Easton and for Bethlehem. And these spotlights sit at the overlap, so these apply in both cities. We identified, I think it's 14 different topics. So the example you're seeing here is grow your own food, but there's additional strategy spotlights about planting trees and taking public transportation, home energy efficiency, renewable energy, and a number of others. And our focus here was really to make it as easy and accessible as possible to take the next step. So maybe you're already doing some action towards taking climate action, then what's the next step you can do to do even more? Or maybe you're just getting started and you're looking for some of that foundational information, and we're hopeful that these resources provide some of that for you. So we have a section on each on why is it important to take action in this way. So why would we want to grow our own food? Why is that important for climate? And then we have some specific ways that you can integrate that into your life, starting at level 1. And level 1 takes the least amount of time, energy, resources to complete, and going up to level 3, which might be something a little bit more involved, but still very doable, very accessible. And if you go to this QR code here, you'll be able to see the digital version of these. And then we also have these really nice, nicely designed print versions. On the right is a version that we're printing like paper flyers, and then this smaller graphic on the left is available to use on social media. So we can go actually to the next slide, and I'll quickly go through these, and then we'll jump into some interaction and the Mentimeter. But this just shows those 14 different categories that I mentioned. So home energy efficiency, renewable energy, using Lanta, walking and biking. And again, these all come straight out of the climate action plan. So when we say we don't want the plans to sit on a shelf, if we're doing these kinds of things, we're putting the plan into action. And I will quick pop the link into the chat as well for these. Oh, Kate just did. So Yeah, that link will take you to the information on all these topics that's available on our website. And it's also available in Spanish if that's helpful for you or anyone that you know. Linked on the same page to the Spanish versions. And then I'll just note here at the end, if you're interested in a lot of these different topics and you want to kind of see everything in one place, we also condense them for different audiences. So renters, homeowners, middle and high school students, college students, and families with young children. So you can pick which of those might apply to you and see a list of the strategies that might be most relevant for you if the list of all 14 categories is a little overwhelming. Okay, so we're gonna try something out, try out doing some interactive polling and getting some of your thoughts on climate action and these different strategy areas. Kate just put a link in the chat to our Mentimeter, so you can click on that link and it'll open up a poll. And you should be able to see the questions. Oh, it's putting it in there. And then, Kate, I don't know if you can switch to the Mentimeter window to see the first question or see the results for the first question.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. So you can either use that link in the chat or you can go to menti.com and enter this 8-digit code that's at the top of the screen here. And we see at least one person found their way in, so that's a good sign. And if you're having trouble, just let us know. So this one's really just starting out broadly. I'm sure people who chose to tune into this webinar at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday are taking some climate action. Just attending this webinar and getting more informed and educated about what's going on locally is a climate action. So curious to hear what some of the ways we're all prioritizing climate action. Oh, I see a walk to work. That's a great one. Garden, planting an edible yard, fruit trees, bushes, hazelnut bushes, composting, recycling. We're having this is later in the presentation too, but a composting workshop at Nurture Nature Center in person in just a couple weeks on the 21st. So would love to have you there if you're interested in composting. Oh, I see more than one composting in here. Awesome. Solar panels, heat pumps, that's a great one. Water heater, letters to the editor, reusing, joining environmental organizations, help tend the Bethlehem Rose Garden, buying local. Yeah, so we're touching on a ton of great categories here. Multiple of our strategy spotlights, local farm stands popping up there. Thank you everyone for entering your responses here. So yeah, great examples, definitely demonstrating that this group is already well on their way. And hopefully if you check out those strategy spotlights, you find a new little hint towards something you can add to what you're already doing, which is awesome. Super. So now we're going towards the connections piece of creating connections, which is focusing on the spaces and groups that we might be part of that support us in living more sustainably. So the things that we're all doing by ourselves inside our own home are great and really helpful. And then we multiply that impact when we work as part of a group and do that collaboratively in community. So I see Bethlehem Environmental Advisory Council on the Waste Reduction Committee, Citizens Climate Lobby, awesome. Multiple Citizens Climate Lobby, the Food Co-op, makes sense. Nurture Nature's projects, oh, nice. Appalachian Mountain Club. Yeah, these are great. So another food co-op. Climate Reality Project. Yeah, we're very lucky in the Lehigh Valley that we have a variety of active groups that we can get involved with and not be just taking action by ourselves, but have other like-minded people to support us in those efforts. And that we tried to work into the strategy spotlights as well, that for something like composting, even if you don't have a backyard or a garden or the ability to compost at home, maybe you can join a group, a community garden that composts, or work with a couple other people to advocate for community composting in your community. Like there's options available no matter where your starting place is to make a difference towards climate action. So thank you for sharing those connections. Maybe that sparks an idea for you of a group you hadn't heard of before that you want to check out. So that's great. And I think we have one more on this slide, which is looking at challenges. So we're clearly overcoming a lot of the challenges and taking action already. But we know that there's things that we might like to be doing or that we would ideally be doing, but it might be inconvenient or challenging for one reason or another. I just mentioned if people don't have a backyard or a garden, that can make it harder to compost, those kinds of things. It is hard to get groups to work together sometimes, and communication, connectivity, yep. The traffic infrastructure for bikes for sure. Hopelessness about the lack of change on a corporate level. Cost of things like solar panels, EVs, other energy efficiency projects. Yeah, so while the information and the collaboration with groups in our area is really supportive and helps us taking action, of course, there are still these challenges. And then the challenges can become, oh, if we're all struggling with this, maybe this group can start working on that, or maybe we need some attention from the city or the EAC or any of the organizations that we mentioned on the last slide to overcome some of these challenges. The availability of reusable products, just time, it's always a huge one. Yes. Young people to take action. Youth Climate Summit coming up. All right. Yeah, I think our last two mentees are for a little bit later in the presentation. Does that sound right to you, Kate? Oh, no, there's one more. Yeah, this one belongs here. Thanks. So our last thing, these are all most of those categories that we just looked at on the last slide. And we're just curious to know if you were to rank which of these you're most likely to engage with. You should be able to, I think, either type in or move them around on your end and submit your rating of which number 1 you're most likely to engage with. This is your top priority strategy, down to number 12. This one is either more challenging or less relevant to you that you're less likely to engage with. And hopefully this is helpful for you to just think about where your priorities lie. And it's also helpful for us as we continue with planning our outreach and our programming to know what is of the most interest, where more information might be most useful to people. So I'll give you a minute or two to do that. All right, so we're getting some good responses in there. We have eat local and plant-based emerging as number 1. Maybe this makes sense with our co-op market representation tonight. Home energy efficiency, it's a great one. Education and raising awareness, something everyone can do. Single-use plastics in the number 4 spot, just dropped to number 5. Natural native backyard habitats, great. And then we see some of the other strategies, also important, but not quite as high maybe on our priority lists in this group. Great, and those are some high impact strategies that are rising to the top as well, which is always nice to see that, you know, residential and commercial electricity use and energy use is one of the biggest contributors to our citywide greenhouse gas emissions. Our food choices are one of the options that we as individuals have the most control over that has the biggest impact. The other one would be transportation, and we see some of those a little bit farther down on the list, but those are things that can be harder to control as individuals, so that might make sense that we're less likely to engage there. Awesome. So we'll jump back in for a few more slides, and then hopefully we'll have some time for more discussion and questions at the end. But this is just a more in-depth look at one of the spotlights. So I'm happy to see that this is one that was near the top of our priority list there, which is creating and maintaining natural native backyard habitats. And we just put into this slide some of the information you'll find on the spotlight itself. So this first paragraph is the why is it important to take action information. And that includes things like the habitat and food for native species that native plants can provide, the stormwater runoff, which is important for climate adaptation as we have more intense precipitation events, the ability to absorb that stormwater. You'll also see benefits from less irrigation and fertilizers required, which can be a cost savings there, as well as reducing the need for mowing and other lawn care. So that's why we would want to focus on creating and maintaining native backyard habitats. And then the levels that we developed for this strategy are to make some small changes on your property. This is level 1, and become watershed friendly or backyard habitat certified. So maybe you're already doing some of these things and you can just apply for the certification. Maybe you need to make a few small changes to meet the requirements, and then you could receive one of these certifications. And Kate just put in the chat the watershed friendly PA link. So that's specifically for programs that are, or properties that are watershed friendly. And then you might also be familiar with the backyard habitat certifications, or I know Bethlehem Backyards for Wildlife is an active group, so I'm sure there's some good information there as well. Then level 2, you're ready to do a little bit more than just make changes on your own property. Maybe you're encouraging local ordinances to reduce mowing or support native landscaping, allowing for, you know, grasses to grow higher before that poses a problem with the codes department or other ordinances. So kind of looking again at that community scale beyond the individual. And that's something that anyone could do, even if they don't have a lawn or their own property that they are maintaining, if they're a renter, for example. And then level 3, so we've done what we can at our own home. We've done what we can community-wide in terms of ordinances. Then we might look at something like becoming a master gardener and really contributing to that, raising awareness and education piece, and being able to volunteer on an ongoing basis to help many other people with their backyard habitats or watershed friendly properties. So beyond your own property, even beyond having the ordinance, helping other people to implement those kinds of practices. So this is just a model of what you might find in any of the spotlights of our 14 strategy spotlights, and the range of different types of actions you'll find, from, you know, things you can do in a day or two on your own, to things you need a group of people to all join together to be part of, and things that you might do on an ongoing basis. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, and then a couple other methods that we've been using to get the word out. In addition to the strategy spotlights, we have a newsletter. This is an email newsletter that goes out quarterly. The most recent one just went out yesterday, so the next one will go out in April. And we really try to keep this action focused and focused on local opportunities. So we spotlight our partners. A couple of newsletters ago, we did a spotlight on Palisades High School's STEM Club, and they've done tree plantings with us and have been involved in the Youth Climate Summit, and they were featured on our podcast recently. But we've featured Community Bike Works and the libraries and a couple other partners, Buy Fresh, Buy Local, as well. And then we also have a section celebrating jobs well done. So looking at the recent news for any examples of climate action that's happening, sustainability efforts that are going on, just any ways that we're making progress across the Lehigh Valley, to remind ourselves that this is already happening and there's momentum we can build on. And then at the end of the newsletter, we put a list of upcoming opportunities to take action. So whether it's the EAC's hosting a cleanup, or Nurture Nature Center has a workshop or an event coming up, or if we come across another opportunity for people to get involved, we try to just list those at the end of the newsletter. So you're always welcome to send us if you're aware of a sustainability, climate related volunteer opportunity or event. Always happy to get that information and to add it into our next newsletter. You can sign up for the newsletter at that QR code, or on our Create Connections website, there's a link where you can go and sign up. And again, it's quarterly, so not a ton of emails coming to your inbox, but hopefully helpful information in there. And then on the next slide, I'll just talk a little bit more about that podcast that I mentioned. So we just finished with the first season, we're calling it, of our podcast, which has 6 different episodes, about half an hour each, that are mostly an interview between me and some of these different partners. So you can see a list of who we've featured so far. We had one with an artist who does big public installations around plastics and reusing materials. We have one with Rob Christopher, Easton's urban conservation manager and forester. The Environmental Advisory Councils are featured on an episode. Buy Fresh, Buy Local of the Greater Lehigh Valley. The Palisades STEM Club that we saw on the last slide, and then Community Bike Works, we talked to their Easton program manager and 2 of the students who are involved, and that was a really fun interview. That was our most recent episode. So we're on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, which feels super official, and we're also, you can listen on our website at that link that Kate just dropped in the chat. So that's a fun, if you're tired of reading things, a fun way to put it in when you're driving or cooking and listen and get a little bit of the local climate action information. Alrighty. Yeah, we can go to the next slide. So we just wanted to kind of give you some information about what you might see coming up and ways that you might be able to get involved with this project in the coming years. So we're a little bit into year 2 of Create Connections right now. It started in October, so a couple months into year 2, and that includes our internship with the 6 undergraduate college students who are helping us develop those library programs. We'll have our 6th annual Youth Climate Summit in the spring, working with the businesses on education campaign and that recognition program. And then we're also going to begin developing some public arts installations with local artists toward the end of this project year, which will lead us into year 3 in the fall. We're going to have a climate action and education week. So that'll involve hopefully a lot of different components all coming together, bring our partners in, have these art installations happening, be able to distribute climate friendly kits. So we haven't, we're still working on developing these, but they'll include things like maybe an LED light bulb or a plant-based local recipe, like little things to give people a stepping stone toward taking more climate action. We'll host our Youth Climate Summit again. That will be the 7th annual. And we'll continue to offer that library programming that we developed this year. So there's a lot of really public-facing, exciting, fun events coming up, and hopefully we'll keep you in the loop on those, and you'll be able to join us. And then year 4, we'll continue to share how the project went and start evaluating some of the impacts that it's had. So we can go to the next slide. This is just a little bit more information about the upcoming Youth Climate Summit. So building on what we did last year, We're doing a 2-day event again. This year we're splitting it to have it focused on youth only on Friday. So that'll be mostly teachers bringing a class or a club as like a field trip during the school day. And then on Saturday, we're actually going to open it up to the public this year. So if you'd be interested in joining, we would love to have you attend. We're going to have a presentation, a performance by the Mosaic Youth Chorus doing some environmental and climate themed music in front of our Science on a Sphere. So that's going to be a really awesome art and science crossover. Our theme for this year is from global to local. So looking at what can we do in our city, what can we do in the Lehigh Valley, and linking it to some of these global climate change issues. The Saturday session that's open to the public, I'll focus on that since that's likely, I think, what some of you may be able to attend. We're going to have the Create Expo, so that's the event where many organizations will come and table and share about upcoming volunteer opportunities or what it is they do. The co-op market came last year, as did the EAC and Citizens Climate Lobby had a table there, so hopefully we'll have those groups represented again this year, as well as a number of others. You might come in and meet an organization that you hadn't interacted with previously and get linked to them. And then the Saturday we'll also have student presentations. So students who have worked on a sustainability project, have one from the past or an ongoing project, will have time to share about what it is that they do, and we'll be able to get a window into what the youth are focused on and interested in and working on, which should be inspiring and interesting for everyone to see. So that's what we got, for the second day of the climate summit. This is some additional information. Yeah, we're good. Thanks, Kate. Some additional information on other ways that you might get involved between now and then. So first thing is just checking out those strategy spotlights, read through and see if there's something new to you that you want to get involved with. We do have the composting workshop coming up on January 21st, and that will be in person at the Nurture Nature Center. We have some great panelists lined up for a discussion at the workshop. We're going to have the City of Easton's Urban Conservation Manager there to talk about their yard waste composting program. We're going to have Deb Martin come and talk about worm composting and backyard composting. We're going to have someone from Lafayette College's Sustainability Office come and talk about their circular food system efforts and composting efforts. And then we'll have Mark Reed from Easton's Community Garden Program come talk about composting at the community gardens. And then we'll have some hands-on, see how to set up a worm composting bin kind of activities after the discussion. So that should be a really exciting evening. That actually, I'll say, sparked from our youth. So we were meeting on an ongoing basis with some middle and high school students after last year's Youth Climate Summit. And at our most recent meeting with them, we were asking, what do you want to learn more about? What should we focus on next? And a few of them said composting. We really want to know, what can we compost? What can we not compost? How do we convince our friends at school to compost their waste from lunch? And we were like, okay, composting's not the most glamorous topic for everyone, but the kids were excited about it. And so that was kind of sparked the idea for the workshop. So we're excited for that in a couple weeks. And the newsletter will include information about events like that, as well as upcoming events. So that's a great way to stay in the loop about what's going on. I mentioned that business meeting on February 3rd. Again, if you are a business owner, if you know a business owner in Easton or Bethlehem or kind of the surrounding areas, we'd love to connect with them at that meeting. Please attend the Saturday portion of the Youth Climate Summit. We're really excited to have that open to the public this year. Last year, we were able to do a tree planting and a bike ride as part of the Climate Summit on Saturday, and we're hoping to integrate those components again. So should be some good active outdoor portions as well. And then last thing is just keep an eye out for that library programming. It really should be kicking off in the early summer months, and we're looking at a family audience for that. So if you have kids in your life who you think might be interested in coming to something like that, it'll be popping up on the library calendars early this summer. So that will kind of do it for us and summarizing this project and where we are so far and what's coming up next, ways that we hope you'll get involved. But we're happy to answer questions and if there's any additional information that we can provide.
Do
Back to you,
you
Jill.